Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Leah Hines. I'm the Executive Director of the Charleston Hub, and it looks like we have participants coming in. We are glad to welcome you all here. The session is AI for Accuracy in Research and Academic Writing, Promoting Student Ownership and Reducing Faculty Stress. I'd like to thank Trinka for sponsoring this webinar and allowing it to be available for free for our attendees. So thank you very much for your sponsorship and your support. I have just a few housekeeping announcements before we get started with the presentation. Again, welcome. I would encourage you to use the attendee chat to say hello. I'm going to make sure those settings are so that everyone can participate. There it is. So say hello, let us know where you're joining us from today, and we'll use that chat just for informal talk, and if you have any technical questions, you can let me know there. We do ask that you would use the Q&A button, however, to enter any questions for the panelists about the content of the presentation. So if you could use the Q&A function for that, we'll hold questions till the end of the session. A link to the video is going to be sent to all registered attendees early next week. So we'll have that available as soon as possible. And then we'll make that openly available on our YouTube channel after a little bit of time. I do want to remind everyone that the Charleston Hub's Code of Conduct applies to this event. So our Code of Conduct states that the Charleston Library Conference is an inclusive professional conference. We respect free speech and invite diverse perspectives and opinions. All participants are expected to treat others with respect and consideration, keeping the conference environment free of discrimination or harassment, and maintaining professional and ethical conduct at all times. So thank you for your attention to the Code of Conduct. And now I'll introduce our speakers. We have Dr. Jeanne Beatrix Law, who is Professor of English and Coordinator, Graduate Certificate in AI Writing Technologies at Kennesaw State University. She has expertise in multimodal languaging, custom GPTs, and generative AI in professional communication. She works in responsible ethical AI in higher education. She's a co-author of The Writer's Loop and contributor at Multimodal Mondays, Bits on Box, featured in the Chronicle of Higher Education, Government Technology Magazine, Coursera AI instructor with over 8,000 learners, a lead researcher at ATLS Student Movement Oral History Project, and an Educator Leadership Council member for OpenAI, AAC&U 2025 Digital Innovations Forum. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Law. We also have Elizabeth Kluk, who is Strategic Alliance Director at Trinka AI. She has over a decade of experience collaborating with educational institutions to integrate technology solutions. She specializes in bridging educational needs and technological advancements. She advocates for responsible AI usage and academic integrity and supports educators in adapting to the evolving digital learning landscape. I'd like to thank both of our speakers for joining us today, and now I'll turn it over to them for their presentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I hope everyone can hear me and everyone's doing well today. Let me put us into presentation mode and I will get us started. So I want to thank you for inviting us and welcoming us into this space. I want to ground us in a shared pedagogical truth. We are all of us navigating uncertain times, pedagogically, professionally, and sometimes personally when we think about our relationship to AI. So my hope today is to not to hand you a tech roadmap for my part, but to offer some encouragement. I'm not a computer scientist, I'm a writing professor. So let me say that again, I'm not a computer scientist, I'm a writing professor. I don't know how to code, but I am a tinkerer, and my students are tinkerers. And I'm going to share today some of the things I've learned about integrating generative AI in ways that feel human-centered, human-driven, responsible, and useful across multiple disciplines. So 4 principles for us to think about, right? top to bottom course reconfiguration is one way to bring generative AI into your class, but a simpler option is to start small and encourage students to purposefully play and engage with specific tools within their learning management system. Want to also think about the principle of being of it's okay to fail, right? That we don't need to know everything about AI to get started with some of these AI tools, and that students are using generative AI and they really do want ethical guidance on how to use it appropriately and for various use cases. I always like to start off with a little bit of data because I think it really does help us think through why we're having multiple conversations and why every time you turn on the news or every time you see your news feed, AI is front and center, right? So let's start off with Forbes. According to Forbes, the most in-demand skill beginning this year are not just narrowly technical skills, they're about adaptability, communication, collaboration, and creativity. All areas where generative AI can act as a scaffold, as a thought partner, and even as a sparring partner, right? So these are the top skills that Forbes says employers are going to be looking for beginning in 2025. AI fluency, which is the new digital literacy. And I know we have a lot of librarians in the room, and I do a lot of research in information literacy. I use the ACRL framework all the time. When we think about AI literacy and fluency, I think it's helpful to think about it as information literacy, right? I see a heart, yay, ACRL, because AI literacy is information literacy, right? They also are saying that employers are going to look for digital transformation and leadership, learning agility, strategic foresight, and then that last one is the ultimate human contributor, the human edge, emotional intelligence, right? And those first four things are things we're going to have to navigate digitally, but that fifth one is coming from human, right? Which is why I'll always talk about generative AI as not just human in the loop, but human driven. And then you've got the World Economic Forum, which just came out with some data in March. It's incredibly interesting. If you haven't looked at the report, I encourage you to look at it. We'll talk a little bit about it today, but it's just a very rich, robust report. The World Economic Forum's report shows that 75% of the employers they surveyed around the world prioritize these human skills as essential for career readiness. So yeah, AI, we got to have it, but that human touch, that human driven, that human creativity, AI can amplify it, but it can't replace it. And we're seeing that from employers themselves saying, this is what we want. Now I want to shift to OpenAI's data. The reason you will see me use OpenAI data is because OpenAI has 800 million users a month, right? The closest large language model to OpenAI would be Gemini, and then Claude, and they're hundreds of millions less. So when I think through what it means for large groups of students, large groups of faculty, I'm thinking about looking at data that has the most data points. What we see from OpenAI's own usage data from February of this year is that the top 5 use cases among college age students, so traditional college age, 18 to 24, based on Research Clearinghouse data, top 5 use cases are over 40% of the students, and we know a third of college age students are already using generative AI. This was in February. I think it's probably higher than that now. But what they're using it for, check it out. They're using it for papers and projects, to summarize text. They're using it for creative projects, exploring topics, editing, writing. So this is where professors and librarians can really engage students with AI use cases, is when we're thinking about not just how to get started, but how to explore topics, how to narrow topics, how to evaluate sources. That key information literacy is where we really kind of find ourselves right now as teachers and librarians. So since we gave OpenAI data, let's give a little bit of Anthropic's data from this year. Anthropic is interesting because those of you who use a lot of generative AI know Anthropic is more it's more for our computer science students. You see a lot more coding going on Claude, in Claude LLMs. You see a lot more humanities, a lot more writing happening in Chat GPT. So it's interesting to me to look at Claude's data, the Anthropic's data. And when we think about AI as a workplace partner, again, preparing our students for these places that they're going to be going to for careers, over half of AI usage for Claude involves iterative task refinement. So it's not one and done. It's not copy and paste. It's students working iteratively with AI tools to get to an AI output, but one that can be not maybe if you're in a classroom tracked by peers and professors, but also one that is human informed and human driven when we use that output. And that's one of the things that's so important is to teach, when we're teaching students, you're not just in the loop, it's your responsibility. Whatever comes out of that generative AI large language model, whoever uses it, that's on you, right? That's whatever gets used is kind of on you, right? And so we think about this and we think about the occupations that are going to require substantial cognitive skills. And Anthropic is telling us, yeah, these skills are programming, data analysis, technical writing. All of these are demonstrating this iterative nature that it will be very, very beneficial to teach students as they progress from first year writing all the way up through their majors and beyond into their careers. I want us to take a really quick pause and let's look at just to really quickly look at this. Of the skills listed here, I want you to think about the one that's most important to you or one that feels the most urgent for the students you engage with. And I wanted this to think about how AI can support the one you're thinking of and can support all of these. These are the top skills, the top 8 skills that the World Economic Forum thinks that workers around the world are going to need for 2030. So 5 years from now. So I want you to think about which one of these is most important to you. And then perhaps as we go along and Elizabeth talks more with us about the demo, you can think about how you can get to one of these using an AI tool. So for me, it's as a writing instructor, it's empathy and active listening. I think that students, when they're learning to develop arguments, really do need to use generative AI to help develop not just empathy for others' points of view, but when we think about Rogerian arguments, we think about misinformation, we think about how we get to that information literacy, sometimes active listening, active reading, those are all super important. I want to shift really quickly to the Digital Education Council, which is a different organization. And we're looking at, this is very interesting. This is data that's only about 3 months old, and it's how instructors at universities are using AI right now. How many instructors do I have in the room? Just give me a thumbs up or a heart or whatever emoji feels good for you. Awesome. Well, 3/4 of us are creating teaching materials with generative AI. I'll raise my hand on that one. I totally am. I totally do that. Over half of us are using it to support administrative tasks we're doing. Half of us are teaching students how to use and evaluate. And that's the point. That's this biting point right here. Half of us are doing this already, right? And then the others of us, we're boosting student engagement. We're using it to detect cheating, and we're generating feedback for student work. But over 2/3 of us agree that incorporating AI into teaching is essential for preparing students for the workplace, right? Here's another really good piece of that. This survey from the Digital Education Council, by the way, 1,700 responses from 52 participating institutions across 28 countries. So this is a very diverse range of faculty, right? So when you think about that 83% of us really having concerns about students being able to critically evaluate AI generated output, if I can get some kind of emotion from that, who agrees with that? Do you have concerns about that? Anybody? I see a thumbs up, some thumbs up, some people. So we're in this space now where, yeah, we've got to figure out how students can critically evaluate and engage with AI generated output so that it becomes human, not AI, not just AI generated. And how do we get there, right? But I will say that a lot of us too are looking at this going, oh, well, as an instructor, I believe the following will enable me to integrate AI into my teaching. If I have access to tools and resources, important. If I have training on how to use those skills, that's also really super important. If I could have a repository of best practices that I could draw from, love it. I'm a huge proponent of OER when it comes to textbooks. So that's something that really resonates with me personally as a professor. Clear guidelines from our universities, from our programs. And then we also environments that encourage innovation. And that I think that we as instructors, most of us like to create those environments for students. But I think what we're talking about here is having administrators and institutions create those spaces for faculty and staff, right? And I think that's super important as well. Really quickly, I wanted to talk to you about some research we're doing at Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State University, for those of you who don't know, is the third largest university in Georgia. We have 45,000 students. We're in R2, so we have 45,000 students undergrad and grad, and in our PhD programs. We have over 10,000 students each year who come through 2 courses of first-year composition, first-year writing. And beginning in 2023, in January, we realized that after November 2022, the world changed when it came to not just information literacy, but how we teach information literacy, how we teach misinformation, how we teach argument, how we teach research in a writing course for general education. So we surveyed students. We surveyed over 1,700 first-year students in 2023, 2024, asking them questions about what they thought about generative AI. And I hate to say this, but this data is old now. So this fall, the next week, we're launching for the whole university. So we hope to have a lot more data. But it's weird to say 2024 is old data. I don't know, Elizabeth. You probably think the same way. Just like usually old data is like 5 years. Now old data is a year ago, right? But this is what our students said. Our first year students said, yeah, we think AI is the future of writing, right? We already use Gen AI in our courses, on social media, and at work. We want to learn more about it, and we would actually take courses in it. And when you look at those numbers in 2023 and 2024, it's stunning because our students are telling us, they were telling us then, they're telling us now what they need to get that AI literacy. Some of the qualitative data that came out of those 1,700 responses were very diverse perspectives on cheating, on usage, and on transparency. And what we found with students at Kennesaw State and our student demographics at Kennesaw State, just to give you a snapshot of our 45,000 students, 40% of them are first generation. Over half of them self-identify as non-white. And we have traditional age students ranging, I think our average age now of a first year incoming student is 19. So just to kind of give you, this data is very replicable to many institutional contexts because we have a very diverse student population at KSU. But when they had the opportunity to tell us in their own words what they thought, we ran a textual analysis on all of that. And here's what we came up with: that they are able to differentiate between what they call acceptable use of AI, generating ideas, improving grammar, things like that, and cheating itself. And they recognized that the intent and the degree of reliance on AI are factors in what they thought is cheating. Students also viewed AI as a tool to enhance their own ideas and to streamline tasks like brainstorming, structuring essays, which is interesting because if you think back, that 2025 Anthropic data and OpenAI data saying the exact same thing that our KSU students were saying. They also don't view AI as a replacement for their own work. They do say that AI helps them understand complex material, and this is key to overcome writer's block. And if I could take I'm watching time, one quick tangent here. That overcoming writer's block is important, but what a lot of the research I'm working on this fall is circulating around neurodivergent writers. And for neurodivergent writers, what we're finding is that generative AI using LLMs to get started with writing is not just about overcoming writer's block for our student writers who are neurodivergent. It really is a survival tactic. And we're hearing this from students. I myself am a neurodivergent writer. I'm doing an autoethnography on some of my conversations with my generative AI assistant. And what's interesting to me is that I use it so much just to be able to organize my ideas and offload some of that cognitive load, right? And I know cognitive load has a very negative connotation, but for neurodivergent writers, offloading some of those menial cognitive tasks really is a survival tactic that I think generative AI can help those students and give them an edge in writing. Our students also want clear guidelines, just like faculty, that data from faculty. We want to know what we can do, what we can't. Misuse comes from these unclear boundaries. It's not intent to deceive anybody. It's not corruption, it's confusion, right? And so those are kind of our call to action. So my next thing to ask you is, how do we as instructors and librarians meet these pedagogical needs? Our students are way ahead with generative AI, and they have lots of needs for us. And what we found at Kennesaw State is that we have the ability to provide key input to think about alternative assessments, not just the same old write an essay that you can do a single shot, get an essay, right? Feminism perspectives on Frankenstein, go. Not that, but thinking about reimagining our courses to have a more process-driven writing model, to be able to help students understand the human-centered ethics of AI outputs, what that means when we use an output, and how do we get to an output that is usable. And then also being able to give input on how we cultivate students' digital literacies, their information literacies, and prepare them to thrive in AI-infused workplaces. So that's kind of our pedagogical framework for the webinar today. These are some really great books if you're interested in learning more. These are some books I'm reading right now. Co-Intelligence by Ethan Mollick, of course, came out in 2023, still so relevant. My students especially love this book because he is also not a computer scientist. He's a business professor, and he writes about AI in a very accessible way that even my first year students and my grad students both really find accessible. Sal Khan, obviously Khan Academy, has written this great book about how AI is revolutionizing the way we think, the way we write. Teaching with AI from my colleagues at the American Association of Colleges and Universities. That's an amazing book for you all as an instructional resource. And I don't know if you all have heard of Unmasking AI, but I'm really engaging with Dr. Bulamwini's book this year as well when we think about biases in large language models and what those biases look like linguistically and culturally, and how we iterate to mitigate those biases. So just to kind of leave you with some things before I turn things over to Elizabeth, what I really want you to know as one colleague to another is that mindful, intentional AI infusion is not only necessary, it's kind of an exigence for us, right? And the way to do it, the way it's worked for me anyway, is to tinker and fail and practice and do that with your students, do that with your colleagues, come out saying, hey, I don't know everything. The first words out of my mouth whenever I do faculty development, I don't code. I don't know how to code. I vibe code, which is not the kind of word that a lot of my computer science colleagues like to hear me say, but I don't code and I can still do this. And so can you, right? And just to tinker, 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 and reach out anytime. I would love to, I'll pop my LinkedIn and my faculty profile into the chat, and would love just to chat with folks about how you're using generative AI at your institution or your workplace, and anything I can do to help scale that for you. I'm certainly happy to do so. Thanks again. And now I'll turn things over to Elizabeth.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn a little more about Trinka and our new anti-cheating solution for academic integrity, DocuMark. We're going to discuss how we can embrace today's technology and how to use AI within the university responsibly by fostering academic integrity, enhancing learning through ethical tools, critically evaluating AI-generated content, and collaborating with faculty to ensure AI supports and does not replace original thinking and research. So a question to leave you with is, do you want students to use AI? Do you think students misuse AI? We live in a time where ChatGPT, Gemini, DeepSeek, Copilot are freely available. Students no longer use them for just ideas. They use them for entire submissions. And the problem, the students may get an A, but who really earned it? AI is already here. We need to step up and create proper guidelines and solutions to ensure that it is used responsibly. Unchecked AI usage leads to a whole ecosystem of challenges. First, we're seeing inaccurate, inconsistent, and unverified AI content. Without proper oversight, how can we be sure the work is relatable? Another challenge is the non-disclosure of AI usage. Students often don't reveal when they've used AI, which makes enforcing academic integrity difficult. Most concerning, AI allows students to bypass critical thinking, the very process that education is built on. So who's guiding this transition? Unfortunately, many institutions face limited faculty training and unclear policies around AI use. The risks are real: reduced critical thinking skills, academic integrity violations, and increased dependency on AI for problem solving, plus faculty burnout from constantly detecting AI usage. These challenges are significant, but solutions do exist, and we'll talk about how we are solving this in the coming slides. Before we jump to how we are addressing this, we know that majority of the universities around the world have started to use AI content detectors, right? Let me paint a picture. A student uses AI responsibly, edits, adds their own thoughts, and gets flagged. Another copies from ChatGPT but flies under the radar. Who gets punished? The honest one. This is the false security we talk about here. We've been trying to police AI with broken tools. It's like trying to catch a mosquito with a tennis racket, and while we swat in the dark, learning suffers. So what is an AI content detector, and why is creating more problems than it is solving? It is a tool that estimates how likely is a piece of writing created by a computer or a human. As it guesses the probability and categorizes the text, it can never be 100% accurate. So what do we do now? How do we solve this problem? Now imagine a different world, a world where students are guided, not punished, where academic integrity is upheld by fear, but by transparency, where the same technology is used as an enabler instead of a cheating mechanism. Introducing DocuMark, an anti-cheating academic integrity tool that doesn't guess if something is AI generated. Instead, it documents the writing process and guides the students to take ownership of their AI use, freeing the faculty to focus back on learning. So what is DocuMark and what does it offer? DocuMark doesn't simply flag AI content, AI generated content. Instead, it gives you a deeper look at the effort behind the student's work, much like how a plagiarism detector scores the similarity of copied content. DocuMark provides a score reflecting the writing that they've done themselves and the amount of reviews and edits they've done on copied and AI generated text. It's all about transparency and making students responsible for their work. How? By guiding them through the process of editing, verifying, and authenticating their work. If faculty gets these insights into the writing process, there's no need of policing their every move. At a fundamental level, the real issue is not about using AI. It's about whether the student has actually read the content, understood it, and modified it in their own words before submitting. Because this rigorous process ensures learning, and skipping this by blindly submitting the assignments is the real issue we need to address. With DocuMark, faculty can see exactly which parts of their students' assignments are typed, which are AI generated, what sources are used for copied content, and most importantly, how much personal effort they put into editing the final piece. Some of you may be thinking, what if a student just sees and types it from another device? Well, here's the magic. DocuMark also detects behavioral signals that may point to potential cheating, like error rates, thinking pauses, excessive backspacing, or repetitive corrections. These are signs of how a human typically writes. Now faculty and students can have an honest conversation about the integrity of their work. At the end of the day, it's not about trapping anyone. It's about giving everyone, students, educators, and administrators, the clarity they need to move forward with confidence. So here's what we've been hearing from some early users. From students, I was using AI incorrectly until DocuMark guided me. Now I'm confident submitting my assignments without fear. For faculty, my stress is gone. DocuMark brings back the pre-chat GPT clarity while embracing today's technology. Finally, I can focus on teaching instead of playing detective. For administrators, data from DocuMark help us craft better AI policies. We've seen higher quality work and fewer academic violations across departments. Now we have a short 5-minute video about how DocuMark works.
Hello. Today, I'm going to walk you through our latest tool DocuMark, an anti-cheating solution for academic integrity that helps identify AI content and safeguard university reputation. Let me quickly begin by showing how a student would typically start writing. If you create a file, you'd enter the topic and begin drafting the content. Currently, I'm using Trinka's Cloud Editor. However, DocuMark is also available for Microsoft Word, and Google Docs support is coming soon. It can also be easily integrated with your existing learning management system like Canva, Moodle, Blackboard, etc. I am enabling the DocuMark feature from here. For institutions, we can have this feature auto-enabled for all documents so it works seamlessly in the background. A student would start writing normally by typing some content. Let me type something quickly. While typing, I've made a few errors here and there, which is how a human would typically write. Now, let me paste some content which could come from Notes, ChatGPT, or any reference material. When you paste a content, it shows a pop-up where students can declare their source of writing and specify the reasons. These details are also available for the faculty in their report, which we will see later. Trinka also offers generative AI features using the \ask command. You can simply ask it to continue writing, or you can give specific prompts. It has generated a good amount of content. Now, the first step I want to show you is you see the DocuMark icon on the right panel. This is a crucial part of the writing process. This guides the student to review, edit, and verify the copied or AI content so that they take ownership of their work and can learn responsibly. Now, let me edit some content to make the tone more suited to the way I write. Let me delete some unwanted content too. Now let's see the DocuMark report. This report is visible to students as well as the faculty. The first section measures the scores of the student effort put on top of AI content, giving the teacher a very strong understanding of the student's learning. This score is similar to what you have in a plagiarism report and can help you quickly decide whether to accept the assignment or send it back for revisions. Here, since the student's efforts in writing and reviewing was low, the scores are also low. Below is the analytics report where you'll be able to see the high-level scores across the different sources of text. From the pie chart, you can see that the amount of AI content is also very high. It has a replay function that shows a word-by-word replay of how exactly the document was written, including AI-generated and copy-pasted content. Text is color highlighted to clearly indicate the different sources. Now let's look at the verification and ownership process. Here, the teacher can see a revision table and sentence-level analysis of how the student has edited and reviewed all the content. As you can see, some sentences were typed, some were manually edited and verified, and some are still unverified. Heavily edited sentences are auto-verified. This level for auto-verification can be customized by the university or the faculty as well. In the below table, you can also view a detailed sentence-level breakdown of all changes made, including the original sentence and the revised version. All the edits are shown in Track Changed version, and there are additional information tags also provided for quick decision-making. With a combination of student efforts and ownership scores, you can build strong rules and help students learn to use AI responsibly. Teachers can now easily refocus on teaching, while the overall academic integrity of institute is ensured. Thank you.
Okay, so Trinka is an AI platform that provides academic integrity and AI-powered writing solutions for individuals, institutions, publishers, and enterprises globally. It's developed in-house, and we have our own proprietary language model that is designed for academic and technical writing. The various features it offers helps authors improve their writing quality, create high-quality content through specially designed AI apps by experts, and a suite of academic reports and tools that help authors increase their chances of publications in international journals. We're not new to this. We're not new to this. Trinka is developed by Inago, which has been in the industry for over 20 years now, and is a leader in providing publishing solutions to authors, institutions, and top publishers worldwide. Our technology supports 200 plus clients, 450 plus institutions across 125 plus countries. We're proud that Gartner's world-leading technology research company recognized Trinka AI as an emerging visionary in generative AI technologies. Here we have a list of institutions and consortiums that we work with globally. We work with markets like the US, Africa, Spain, Europe, Southeast Asia, and we also work with 19 out of the 20 top publishers globally. So let me leave you with this. If AI writes your essays, who's learning the lessons? We believe that with the right tools, the answers can still be the students. Thank you so much, everyone. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but if you want to express your love and hate for AI Let's Talk, scan the QR code to book a consultation to keep the conversation going.
All right, so we've got some questions already submitted in the Q&A tab, and I would encourage attendees, if you have other questions, to put those in there as well. For now, I'll get started with this one from Camille Cooper. I heard Dr. Law mention the ethical use of AI. I'd be interested in hearing her thoughts about squaring ethical use with the substantial environmental costs of AI, like the ones discussed in the July 2025 post. What are the environmental impacts of artificial intelligence by Jose Pablo Ortiz Partida? And then she provided a link to the blog there. So Dr. Law, if you would like to address that.
Sure, absolutely. So I totally get that. And I think what we're thinking about from 2023 to 2025, and this is coming not from me, but from my computer science colleagues at Kennesaw State and down at Georgia Tech. So from 2023 to 2024, we were operating on one set of environmental impacts. Things get not incrementally better with technology, but when we think about technology growth, you talk about exponential growth, right? So when you look at MIT's numbers from 2023 and 2024, which is what a lot of those initial impact statements were based on, now folks like me who are teaching our students to write sustainability impacts with every time they write with AI, and I can talk more about that in a sec, we're using those 2025 MIT numbers, which are better than the 2023 numbers. They're still not great, but you know what? We're using Google. I'm using a laptop right now. I've got my laptop plugged in. There are all kinds of things that we individually do and that we collectively do. So I don't know that that's the best answer, but I can just say maybe it's getting better. But what I do with my students is using that MIT 2025 data. I teach a graduate level prompt engineering class for writers. And what we do for every portfolio piece, every use case, every time we're writing with AI, my students research how much time they spent, how many prompts they use, how many iterations they use, and then they plug that into MIT's 2025 data, and they write sustainability statements at the end of every single piece. And I think that's super important because I'm not sure that those of us who are end users of generative AI like me and like my students can do a whole lot about that environmental impact as individuals. But I think what can be done is that we can be transparent and we can recognize it and we can heighten that awareness to push our tech brethren to continue to push for those better energy drivers, right? I know that's probably not the best answer, but I think it's like the only one I have.
Just a side note, it made me think, I saw there's a lot of people who are using like please and thank you, and they're responding like in the number of prompts and the number of interactions. Like there's I read like you don't have to say thank you. That's just one more more thing that you're adding to the number.
That's true. And I'm from the South, and so I am conditioned to say please and thank you. And I do it with my AI assistant all the time. I just can't help it. My grandmother would just be very upset with me if I didn't. But Camille, I totally get what Camille's got this great blog. I think I'm going to go check it out. I haven't seen the UCS blog yet, but I think everybody should totally check that out, and we should be aware of kind of where we are. when it comes to this. I don't know if Elizabeth wants to add anything to that, but I think when you live in the technology space, I think it's something that people hear a lot, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a valid critique.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. We have a question that was submitted anonymously. How can educators encourage students to use AI for idea generation rather than as a shortcut to support creativity and anti-cheating goals?
Well, DocuMark offers clear insights into the effort that the student put into writing and reviewing process, helping institutions to uphold academic integrity and shift the focus from AI detection back to meaningful learning outcomes. So it centers on a transparency first approach where educators regain focus on teaching rather than policing because students verify and own their own AI usage with confidence.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything else to that?
And I think process tracking, I think that's great. I think that's incredibly transparent. I think Elizabeth hit on that as well. Being transparent, I think, is the most important thing. And also, I would say from a teaching perspective, this idea of tinkering, right, is just another word for iteration. And the idea that even computer scientists are telling us that even when they vibe code or program, single shot prompting is not useful. It's the iterative process of prompting that is where that's why the natural language models are so great, because anyone using precise language can iterate, right? It's the back and forth that does this, not just one and done.
Thank you. Here's another one. So, what are the risks of relying solely on detection tools for anti-cheating, especially when dealing with AI-generated content?
Well, DocuMark helps create clear policies for institutions by providing transparent, evidence-based framework that shifts policies from abstract rules to tractable, verifiable behaviors. Um, and so that's how it would help with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's one thing to think about a detector versus a helper, right? And I think that's where that distinction lies, is helping students to work within a space using generative AI and to see their process, as opposed to something, let's say, I mean, I don't like to name drop, but to say turn it in, right? Which only does the, hey, you cheated. And what we know about first generation students, I don't know how many of you are at institutions that have a high population of first generation students like Kennesaw State, but at Kennesaw State, we have, I mean, to me as an instructor, the issue is if I am using Turnitin and they are just going, ooh, cheat, right? A student is very likely, if they're a first gen student, to experience that sense of not belonging. They already have a sense of I don't belong here, right? And if they are turned into academic affairs for that or academic integrity for that, we could not only lose that student, but as we could also lose lose the voice that they have to share, because they might drop out of college. If they're whether it's false or not false, it's still an accusation. And a lot of our first generation students just cannot or don't know how to argue for themselves to deal with that. So I'm a huge proponent of being transparent with students and not just having that conversation and not just saying you cheat, you lose, right? That just I think those I just don't think we can gauge students that way anymore.
The compassionate approach.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
I love it. Yeah, it has to be, really. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's see. Here's another one. In what situations would banning AI entirely be counterproductive for preventing cheating?
Annie? Annie? I don't know, Elizabeth, go ahead.
I'm not sure.
I would agree with Elizabeth. I don't think I think as my granddad used to say, and apologies for the idiom, the horse has left the barn, right? Like we're kind of Our students are already, I mean, any data you look at, nationwide, regionally, institutions that are doing their own data, students are already using this. So for me, it's the call to action is how can I engage them so that they use it responsibly, and teach them how to do that and work with students. And that's what I love about, stuff like that, is just being able to work with students, instead of against them.
So teaching AI literacy skills, just the way we do like information literacy skills, so sort of
Right.
like make it part of the intro coursework, basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think librarians have a huge role to play here because you all are the experts in information literacy and AI literacy, just like all other kinds of digital literacy, really do that. They hinge on being able to accurately evaluate and analyze information.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I've gone, let's see, we have one more. What strategies can help students see AI as a tool for learning rather than a shortcut to avoid effort? So it's not the lazy way out. How do we use it as a tool?
Yeah, I really think it can be used as a tool to enhance writing and to further get across what you're trying to get across in your writing, especially if you take ownership of your work and you're not just copying, pasting. And so our tool DocuMark helps with that. So I think having the right tools to help you use it responsibly makes all the difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree.
Jeanne, you mentioned earlier using it for like neurodivergent learners, neurodivergent writers,
Yep.
Using it as a tool for that as well. I think that fits right into this question here. It's not the lazy way out. It's a tool to organize. It's a tool to help boost your writing. And
very true. And
yeah.
I hear many colleagues, not many, some colleagues in the humanities and social sciences talk, certainly on LinkedIn and in other spaces, talk about a lot about cognitive offloading as a very negative thing. And I think for neurotypical writers, perhaps that is a thing. But as a neurodivergent writer, I can tell you, and for all the neurodivergent writers I work with, I can say it really is survival mode for us. And it's not just the paralysis of the blank page that we always hear, right? For a neurodivergent writer, not getting started can be a paralysis. Like it can stop a student from doing the work. So you don't even turn in the work because you can't even get started. And being able to use generative AI in that space to help students get started, I really do think that is a game changer in the way we teach writing. I also think that we have many more neurodivergent students and neurodivergent writers than we think. We have Kennesaw State, we have 1,500 self-identified neurodivergent writers who are coming through our university at any given time. But for every self-identified neurodivergent writer, you all know this in university, it all depends on whether they ask for help or whether they self-identify, right? We're not talking about K through 12. And so we lose a lot of students asking for help for accommodations when it comes to that. And I think generative AI can be a part of information literacy and writing accommodations.
Yeah. That's excellent. Thank you. We have a question from Kelly. Could we have a copy of the research slides? Will that be something that we could provide?
Of course, you can have all of my, all of my slides are OER, and I put a link to my faculty profile. I'm a very big proponent, like I said, of open educational resources. And so I've assignments, handouts, things that I've done, models we've done that you can take and use and adapt. Whatever you want to do with them are all on my faculty page for Kennesaw State, and I encourage you to take them.
Great. Thank you so much. So we'll provide that and Elizabeth's, your slides and the link to the video as well when we send out the recording early next week. Okay. Any additional questions from our audience? You can send them in through the chat or the Q&A. While we're waiting for that, any closing comments from our panelists? Anything you would like to wrap up? Closing thoughts to share?
Just thank you so much for taking the time to learn a little more about this topic and about DocuMark and DocuMark. So we appreciate it.
And thanks for being here on a Thursday, but school starts for us at KSU on Monday. I don't know where you
Mm.
all are at your institutions, but this is a busy time of year for all of us, and I'm just grateful that everyone was able to come and listen. And please do connect with me on LinkedIn so we can continue the conversation about how we can help our students.
Great. Oh, we have one last question that was submitted just under the wire. From Haley. Will using AI tools in an effective way teach the writing process to the extent that users will be able to apply skills and write without the tools going forward? Or will it make writers reliant on these tools to be productive? If the latter, is that something to be concerned about?
Mm. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword there. I definitely think that the AI tools can be used to help if you're using it in the right way. You can also, though, be used to become reliant on it if you're not changing your own work and taking accountability. So that's what DocuMark does. It helps you take accountability from the beginning of your writing process and assists you within that.
I think that's a valid point. I think that Haley has a valid point with over-reliance. I think that's why when we're thinking as instructors, engaging with our students in the iteration and actually working with our librarian colleagues to teach AI literacy as information literacy and what it looks like when we evaluate sources, because the librarians in the room know this. Where were we in 2019 with Google? I did some information literacy with librarian colleagues of mine. We did a lot of think aloud protocols, and we did that on a screen share. What did we see? We saw a lot of our students clicking the very first Google search result, even if it was an ad. And how did we teach that? How did we get past that? Well, we have an opportunity now to do that with generative AI. We just need to collaborate and have open conversations about it and make sure that we're reaching out to our colleagues and make sure that all of those perspectives, the concerns about environment, the concerns about labor, the concerns about over-reliance are all valued, that everybody has a seat at the table, and then we can get to where we need to be.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That was a great session. I learned a lot. And I will follow up to provide everyone those links that we mentioned and the slides. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.